Hello, and welcome to video A for the CLIRP recipient workshops. Before we start, I'd first like to acknowledge the country in which we and myself and my colleagues are presenting from today. We're on the Bundjalung country, and we pay respect for elders past, present, and emerging. The video today, video both A, this one, and video B, on resilient materials is an initiative that was birthed from Create New South Wales in partnership with New South Wales Public Works. So Create New South Wales, who you're aware of, who you've been working with and discussing in respect to your successful grant receival. New South Wales Public Works, which is where I'm from, and my colleagues, we are a state project management delivery service where we deliver for state agencies and non-for-profit organisations. So we're privileged to be here today to share our learnings and experience with you. Before we dive in, just want to start with a bit of a disclaimer. The information being presented in this video today is general in nature. It's to cover a broad range of topics, and we understand and acknowledge that some of you may be completely new to project management and construction, whilst others may have had experience or exposure to some degree of it prior. So the information today is a guide with the latest information that we have to date at this point in time of recording, and we strongly encourage you to do further research and provide judgment when applying the information provided, specific to the task that you're doing. This information, it is very much tips and tricks and guidance. It's not a detailed description on how to work through tasks. The video A today is on project management construction-based tips and tricks. So as an introduction, my name is Nick Ree. I am a project manager at New South Wales Public Works. I have been in the construction industry for about 12 years in the project delivery space. My background is I'm an engineer, and I have a Masters of Project Management. I would also like to introduce a very experienced and extremely capable colleague of mine who specialises in this field, Trina. Trina, could you please introduce yourself?
My name is Trina McClure. I'm a project and contract manager with Public Works. I've been in the construction business for over 20 years, well over 20 years, both as an architect and as a project and a construction contract manager.
Fantastic. Thanks, Trina. So why are you receiving this video today? So sadly, as we're all aware of the catastrophic and devastating floods that occurred in early 2022, it impacted the entire region and community, and that includes the arts and cultural organisations. This video and the content within it has been developed with the support and drive from Create New South Wales. You are all here watching this, or you might be revisiting from attending a workshop prior in the Lismore office because you received capital works grants to restore and rebuild the physical infrastructure that allows you to do the important creative industry work that you do. Many of you may have not seen a construction project before. Some may have to some extent, but the catastrophic events in early 2022 really puts all of this at a scale that is unprecedented before. So we're very privileged to be partnering with Create New South Wales to provide this information to you. And one thing I really want to clarify with you before we really dive into the content is to let you know that you have got this. You may find a lot of this more common than what you may have thought. It might be a unique lingo, but it's not a foreign space, and I'll help talk why. There will be terminology that you will come across in this video. You will also come across this likely in the project construction space as you work through your grant funding to deliver your outcomes. Please feel free to jump back in the video to any point to just double check on the terminology and the description. We've also added in some abbreviations here that we will avoid using where we can in the video, but we may do, or you may come across it as well. So please come back here as a cheat sheet. So the aim of video A is to provide some tips and tricks that might help you anticipate, deal with, or even better avoid some of the typical challenges that we do come across in the construction-based projects. Session A, or video A overview, will cover project phases. We will cover scope of works and the importance of it, cost estimation and scheduling or programming and the monitoring of those elements. Talk about risks and risk management that you come across in construction-based projects. A written quotation or contracts, and that's talking about procurement with your trades, workers, principal contractor, talk about that, and general workplace health and safety fundamentals. And then also touch on the completion phase and what to expect in terms of a certificate of completion. Just a quick high level, just to make sure everyone's on the same understanding going forward in this video. Just want to clarify what is project management. And to do that, we'll just very simply break it into two elements. You have the project, which is a temporary endeavour with defined goals and allocated resources aimed at delivering a unique outcome. And then you have the management. And so the management is the coordination of resources and people that's available to you to achieve the outcomes successfully. So an example which may be very familiar is painting. You have a desired outcome, which may be a way that you wish the viewer to feel, or you wish to express an emotion through the painting. In terms of resources that you need to manage, you have limited colours. You might have limited time available to do the painting. You might have limited budget. You might be able to go buy more colours when you run out. So you need to, before you start painting, you need to think about how you're going to approach it. What is the best way to still achieve the outcome that I want? This logic is as simple as that, applies the exact same to construction projects. Renovations, for example, you're doing a bathroom, you have a particular outcome that you want to have in there. You then have limited resources. Budget's a big one. Time is a big one. Trades available is a big one. Materials available is a big one. So you plan ahead and you manage your resources to get to the best outcome efficiently. And that's project management. Why is it important? Project management is not something that's new, I guess, in general. There have been, globally hundreds of millions projects delivered over time. From that experience and learning, there's been you could say, a body of knowledge that's been developed that says, hey, if we tend to follow these general steps and we consider these elements of a project, tends to go in the right direction and achieves a good outcome. So what we wanted to do today is we want to share with you those tips and tricks that have been industry proven over the years and the things that we use to deliver our projects of various shape and size. And we want to share that with you and help provide you with some guidance and direction to give you a bit of confidence going forward in what you have. The biggest thing that I do want to say is you, as the viewer of this video, have got this. I really want to iterate to you that you should be confident in your ability to go forward. It's not necessarily such a foreign space of applying project management, and you are more than capable and I guess competent to do these levels of work. This isn't just specialized for a particular type of industry specialists. It's not. Anyone can do this, and that's what we really want to share with you today. And remember that Create New South Wales are here with you along the journey. So if you have any questions or uncertainties or queries, please don't hesitate to contact them. They want you to succeed. We want you to succeed. So reach out, and wish you the best of luck with it. So what I'll do now is I will pass you over to Trina, a colleague of mine, and she'll run through the first video A session content of tips and tricks. Thanks, Trina.
Thanks for that, Nick. All very good stuff about why contract management is valuable. I'll do the rest of the slides from here. Thank you. Now, I've got about 10 tips in these slides. Tip number 1, do your watch grand designs. I'm hoping a few of you there are nodding your heads, and I'm going to ask the question, have you ever seen one that went to plan? Okay. Well, just like that, it's not going to go to plan. My number 1 tip is just anticipate that. Don't let it throw you. Keep focused on solutions and what you need to move forward. Goodbye, Kevin. So I want to have a little quick chat here about the phases. The first phase, initiation. Then there's planning, delivery, and closeout. Some of you are in the planning phase, and some of you may even be in the delivery phase. But you have all already passed through the initiation phase, where you worked out what do we need, and hopefully you started there with a good list. How much will it cost, and how long will it take? It's always advisable to talk to costs and time with someone from the industry so that you can get a realistic idea of what that's going to look like. That original list forms your project objectives. And my tip number 2 is I recommend you keep it on the back of the fridge. I recommend that you keep coming back to that list to check that you are still delivering the project or the scope of works that you set out to deliver. Sometimes they can morph into other things, bigger and smaller. Let's have a wee chat about the planning phase. During the planning phase, the list of what you want will get more detailed, and it effectively becomes the scope of works. That already should be raising questions for many of you. Who's developing the scope of works? Who's monitoring time and costs? Who's doing the time and cost reporting? Who's approving the scope of works? And that's your internal stakeholders. Who's approving the dollar price? Who's going to ask tradies and builders for prices? And who's the one person who's going to instruct the tradie and the builder moving forward? There's nothing worse than multiple people thinking that they're instructing the builder. And the builder, God love him or her, really should only have instruction from one person. And that will manage time and costs the most effective way. The next thing you should do is develop a schedule, or some people call it a program. You develop a risk register. You get a detailed cost estimate, which is different to the budget. You investigate the planning pathway, and you get approval if you need it. There's a bit more about that in session B. And you consider how you're going to procure the works. One head contractor, multiple subbies engaged separately and directly. And are you going to do that through quotes or contracts? My tip number 3, think about the finishes as early as possible. It's more stressful and expensive if you leave it until construction starts on site. Let's talk about the delivery phase. This is the bit where all of that detail and the communication pays off. You procure the works. You do that either through one head contractor or you engage multiple subbies separately. That means You send out a written scope. You get back written prices. You compare the prices, what's included and what's maybe not included. And you can also talk to referees, which is important if you maybe have no knowledge of work that the contractor or the subby has done for anyone else. And with the relevant stakeholders on the scope and cost, you take the decision, and one person clearly communicates with the multiple subbies or the one head contractor. And through that process, they may ask you to either sign and return their quote, or you and the head contractor may have opted to sign a contract. I'm going to say this again, I cannot stress this enough. You also do need to let your staff and your stakeholders know, as well as the subbies and the head contractor, who that one person is that can instruct them. And then if anyone else tries to ask for changes, or the subbies and the head contractor are fully entitled to say, listen, that's a great idea. Would you go back and talk to Trina? Okay, good. And it's also good, it also allows your staff then, if the head contractor or the subbies come up to them with a problem, it also allows your staff members to say, I can see that's a problem. Would you please go and talk to Trina? All right. The end of this process, my tip number 4 is the outcome is clear to that one person and the subbies that you have engaged them to deliver a fixed scope of works. In the delivery phase, this is your grand designs moment as issues arise. Again, it's that one person. You need to try to understand the issue, the options, and the probable likely costs, and record the issue in a register. This is going to range from some really simple things that are hardly going to have any time or cost impact to some larger problems that are going to have potentially significant time and cost impact. So, for example, you've chosen your tiles. They're a beautiful lemon color, but the ones you wanted are coming from Italy, and they're not in stock. It's going to take 12 weeks to get them in stock. Builder comes to you and says that you have a chat with them. Your option at that stage is choose different tiles that are in stock. You know, hopefully you've already picked your sort of your broad color set, but you may have to find something that's in stock to get the time, because of the time impact. Let's say your builder comes to you and says, listen, we stripped out this wall lining and that existing wall frame is rotten. Now, have a chat with them, have a look at it. What does rotten mean? You should be able to poke holes in it with your finger. At that stage, you may have to remove and replace the wall frame. That is going to have a much bigger time and cost impact. You need to work out which stakeholders to talk to about the options to move forward. And the options to move forward is something you should have discussed with your head contractor or the subbies. So you need to then go back to your stakeholders and talk to them about the options, the probable likely costs, and the best solution to move forward. You should then begin to record the time and cost risk in your variation register. Some of the questions you really need to ask yourself: do you need to get an accurate price before proceeding? And you definitely need to make sure that you give a clear instruction as to what it is that you want. And I strongly recommend you do that in writing to save confusion and misunderstanding. By using, tip number 5, by using an issues, otherwise known as a variation register, you are able to monitor the change to time and costs. What is a scope of works and why is it important to manage that? Remember, you started at the initiation phase with the what do we need list And this formed your project objectives. Then during the planning phase, you developed it in detail to get the scope of works, and you checked with your stakeholders to make sure it was the right fit at the right cost. During this phase, you kept asking yourself, is my list getting longer or just more detailed? Or put that another way, have we avoided scope creep? And if not, you and the relevant stakeholders need to work out, how are we going to pay for it, or can we do without it? That process continues right the way through the delivery phase, especially as you encounter issues or potential variations. For example, you may be relining the bottom floor with new vinyl. The builder may say to you, this is a cost-effective time for you to remove and replace your vinyl upstairs. Yes, it might be a great idea, but have you got the extra money? Tip number 6, always, always, always ask, will that cost more time or money? And that's ask your stakeholders, at the initiation and the planning phase, yes, things are getting, the scope is maybe increasing rather than just getting more detailed. And your builder or your subbies on site, they're always going to try and give you good suggestions, but you need to know before you get a bill for it, is it going to cost more time or money? Let's talk a little bit more about cost estimating and monitoring. The best way to get a good cost estimate to start with is either to pay a professional estimator or spend a lot of time getting across the detail, including the nuts and bolts, and that should include design costs, planning applications. A good cost estimator should do all that for you, and a good cost estimate, or indeed a good quotation later, should include a good breakdown with lots of separate line items. With those separate line items, you can then monitor the actual expenditure against the estimate. And remember, a good estimate is required at the start to check that you have enough budget. Tip number 7. We all know it. The teams who do cost estimating and monitoring weekly stay on top of the budget and they don't run out of money before the end. Let's talk a little bit about time, scheduling, some people call it programming, and how to monitor that. Earlier on, we said you've developed a schedule or a program. This is an example of a schedule or a program. It really lists out what happens first, and then everything in order after that. It could be as simple as a list, as long as it includes time against those tasks, or it might be a Gantt chart format, like the one we've shown here. Either way, you can then monitor actual time against the schedule. And then you can report to the stakeholders, and you can also forward plan based on anticipated completion dates. You guys just all want to get back in and get organized, get everything planned, get tickets on sale again. Really understanding that completion date and keeping an eye on the impact to any changes to it is a critical part of the process for you. So tip number 8, it's not too late, especially if you have separate bits or areas of work. And here's an example really where the Gantt chart is, we're just using the actual task list on the left and time against it on the right. Risks and risk management. I like that quote from the movie Risky Business where Tom Cruise says something like, freedom brings opportunity, opportunity makes your future, and so your parents are going out of town. In other words, risk management means that those parents have asked themselves what could go wrong, and by anticipating that, you can develop a way to avoid it, right? So what does the process of risk and risk management look like? There are basically 4 steps. Step number 1, you identify the foreseeable hazards and evaluate the risk. You assess the likelihood of it happening and the possible impact. You should really also record who can manage that risk. And you look at possible controls to reduce the risk level if the risk seems unacceptable. Step 4, you should always review that and add new risks as you identify them. Risk management is valuable for time, cost, and quality. And we've talked about managing some risks already. So, for example, your cost estimate followed by your detailed estimate reduces your risk of the budget not providing what you need. Picking your finishes as early as possible. Revisiting your original project objectives. A written quote or a contract reduces the risk of verbal misunderstandings. Your variation register reduces your risk of incurring costs that you were not anticipating. Approval from your stakeholders avoids the risk of not delivering something that they didn't think they were getting. Checking the planning pathway, make sure you stay on the right side of the planning requirements. And checking your risk register throughout the process will ensure that risk mitigation strategies are actioned at the right point in time. And of course, you can always use a simple color coding for that, green, yellow, and red. So let's talk about the risks in the construction business and some of the work health and safety fundamentals. The most common causes of injury or death, let me start that one again. The most common causes of injury or death on construction sites are falls from heights, contact with electricity, being hit by falling objects, or moving plant. There's a lovely little pocket guidebook published by Safe Work on their website that talks to many of those types of risks in more detail. Look, it's actually designed for small to medium-sized businesses who are in the construction business, but I think for anyone who's looking at construction works, it's a really good grounding in what sort of risks can happen in the construction industry. So how does risk management help us understand and manage WHS risks during the construction phase? Let's start with a typical risk matrix. Now, this one is for delays and costs, but of course, in the construction business, the potential of someone dying from the incident should, of course, be on there. But what we do is over on the left-hand side, you look at the likelihood of it happening, and across the top, the consequence. So the top line item there is the top row, second top row. It's a certainty of greater than 90% chance it would happen. And right over on the right-hand side, the outcome would be catastrophic, say the project abandoned. Some projects, if you don't manage the risk of the addressing the actual costs of it early enough, and somehow you get a quote in from your builder that's 3 times your budget, that may mean that you have to abandon your project. That's a cost risk. But death would be part of your catastrophic outcomes there. And certainly anything that's in that red area, we would be trying to look at ways to mitigate those risks to get them back into the yellow and the green areas. Let's look at a couple of examples. Example number 1, you've got a plumber coming around to fix a tap. You have a chat with the plumber, you identify the hazards, what could go wrong. You look at the likelihood of that hazard happening, and you assess the consequence of that hazard happening. And then you decide whether you're looking at a low risk, the green areas, and that you might decide no mitigation is required. You should record that. You know, the plumber's coming around, all he's going to do is fix a tap. It's very unlikely that there's anything that's going to happen to you or your staff. It's probable that you would be able to share the workspace with the plumber on that occasion. Let's look at another example. Example number 2, they're going to refit the kitchen. Now, after a discussion with the subby and the head contractor, together, you identify the hazards. What could go wrong? Well, one of the things that could go wrong, for example, is that the head contractor, the subby, has lots of new carcasses, the cabinetry that comes in, and you're trying to share the workspace at this stage. There's very little free space in your workspace, and so the cabinetry gets left blocking the fire exits. Well, now that's an awful option, right? If an accident does happen and your team and the builder can't exit the building safely, you could be in that catastrophic end. So you together, you might look at that risk and you might say, listen, I've got a spare empty room over here. You can keep your cabinets in there. That should be no problem. And I'll communicate with my staff that you will be moving cabinets in and out throughout the day, but that we're going to make sure everything is clear of the fire exits, so there shouldn't be any issues. Okay. So again, it's not just the cabinets. Talk to the subby or the head contractor. What is he likely to be doing on site on that day? And now remember, you don't manage the risks that the subby or the head contractor encounter every day of their works. You're managing the risks that it's going to have on you or your staff if you want to share the workspace. And share the workspace, that could also include even entering the workspace on the day that the subbies are there. Let's look at example 3. In example 3, you've got a single-story building. They're going to re-roof it. And after a discussion with the subby and the head contractor, together you identify the hazards. What could go wrong? Well, it's the likelihood and the consequence. So in this case, during that re-roofing process, the head contractor could fall through the roof. Now, you can't manage on his behalf how he mitigates that risk. He, as the expert in that area, understands what he can do to mitigate his risk, and he should be documenting that. But what happens if some of your staff have entered the building site underneath when that's happening, and even if it's just a piece of equipment that falls through, hits them on the head, and that you have a serious injury or worse? So after you've had a chat with your builder about the sorts of things that could go wrong, you may decide that the risk, even to your staff or anyone from your staff being in that building during those works, is just unacceptable, that there's no way for you to get it down to an acceptable level. And you may have to communicate to your staff that day, we are not allowed to enter the workspace at all for the next 2 weeks or a week until the re-roofing is complete. I'll let you know when the re-roofing is complete. All right, so we've looked at 3 different kind of extremes of risks there and the impacts that they might have. Hopefully that's helped you to work out how you can look at the risks of construction and whether they're going to impact your staff for your operating business. And the key takeaway from that is that you really need to talk to your subbies or the head contractor and understand the construction-based risks on site, on any day, and how to ensure that you don't put your organization at risk. So there are some specific, or there are times when specific licenses are required. And you'll find a list of those on the Safe Work website, Safe Work that regulates those. So for example, the removal of asbestos, whether it's a Class A or a Class B license that you need, again, you'll be able to get some definition from the Safe Work website as to when you might need a Class A or a Class B. But the specific licenses are required for that. Unrestricted demolition, even restricted demolition, explosives, and there are other high-risk work licenses, and that includes traffic control. So go and have a look on the websites to make sure that you're not looking to engage someone with those licenses. Now, your subbies should tell you if those licenses are required, and I would be very disappointed. I would be more than disappointed if subbies didn't communicate that clearly with you, but you can always check. So now we're going to have a quick chat about contracts. When do I need a contract, and what are the different types of contracts? If you are subcontracting the works to tradies, separate tradies, it is likely that they will give you a written quote and that they will ask you to sign it and return it to them in order to engage them to do the works. As a rule of thumb, some quotes might be for anything between 5 to 20,000. Contract has more clauses to control conditions, such as a time frame to complete the works, and it might allow you to hold retention monies for a period of time after completion to rectify defects if defects occur. But remember, you still must pay that money at that point in time, like any other payment that is due under the Securities of Payment Act. If you're engaging for work greater than 20,000, you might consider using a head contractor and a contract. A head contractor means that he engages all the various subbies. And yes, you are, paying him about 10% on top of their prices to do that. But that's his time you're paying for. And if it's not his time you're paying for, it's someone on your staff that you need to pay for them to manage that process. Tip number 9. There are a number of contracts available on various websites, such as Buy New South Wales, that's a government website. The Australian Standards, that's another government website. Now, the Buy New South Wales, it's free, the Mini Minor Works, or the MW21. The Australian Standards, you're going to have to pay, I think, an amount of money for that, and probably even for the Master Builder one. And then there's only a couple more slides to go, everyone. I want to have a quick look now at the completion phase and certificates of compliance. So I keep looking at my image over here rather than at the screen over here. You'll just have to forgive me. Generally, there are 3 formal trade certificates of compliance that are required. For plumbing or drainage works, that must be a licensed plumber. For electrical works, that must be a licensed electrician. And actually, both of those people, as well as the gas fitter, should give you something signed off at the end to certify their works. And the third one is gas fitting. Even for your standalone gas, you should get a certificate that comes with that, as well as, say, a wee plaque that goes on the wall. You should ask for any operations manuals for equipment. A lot of those operation and maintenance manuals you can get online now. You should either have a current fire safety certificate or you may need a new one. And look, guys, I'm guessing that's something that you do annually anyway. And right at the start, your planning pathway will have determined for you if you need to make a formal application using a certifier for an occupation certificate once the works have been complete. This is the last slide in my session. Tip 10, take one of the handouts and use all the links. And I'm hoping that the handout is available to you guys there as well. Some of the links on those handouts. There's a beautiful project management toolkit. If you really wanted to get into if you wanted to grab some of those registers and things that have already been made up. We've talked a little bit about what's on the Safe Work website and what you will go there for. Fair Trading has a very good page on the Securities of Payment Act, as well as other things. but fair trading really is for the housing industry and not for the commercial industry. On Buy New South Wales, that's where you can get the Mini Minor Works contract. Master Builder has a lump sum contract. Any of your LGAs should have very good websites to help you understand when you need a development application. It's a step-by-step guide. And I've just put on there as well a couple of the other websites I thought that provided really good information. The one about electrical safety from Queensland. There's a lovely Suncorp one, how to flood-proof your home. Some of those may be applicable in your commercial residence, although I would warn everyone, flood-proofing is maybe not a realistic target, but I do know you've got some, Session B talks a little bit more about those types of issues. And a couple of other institutes have also got some flood resilient fit out guides. They would also be of great value to you guys in terms of choosing materials and what you do moving forward. Well, guys, that's it from me. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm wishing you all the best with your project ahead. And congratulations on winning the grant funding to make it all achievable. All right, that's it from me. Back to you, Nick. Thank you.
Thank you, Trina. And that brings us to the end of video A, project management tips and tricks. If you have any questions, strongly encourage you to jump online and have a look in those links that you can see in front of you in tip 10, or reach out and contact Create New South Wales, and they would be more than happy to help or put you in contact with someone that can. I wish you all the best of luck. Congratulations, and you've got this. Thank you. Bye.